Hello. My name is Ethan Blake, and this is the story of how the woman I loved for 5 years married someone else while smiling at me like nothing had ever happened. I still remember the exact moment I walked into that venue. It was supposed to be a product launch, a high society gathering, something I got invited to out of routine. Instead, I was greeted by flickering lights, clinking champagne flutes, and a sea of well-dressed guests shouting in unison, "Kiss! Kiss! Kiss!" And there she was, Rachel Liu, my fiancée of 5 years, dressed in white lace and rhinestones, wrapped tightly in the arms of a boy who looked like he'd just finished his sophomore year in college. She pressed her crimson lips to his, slowly, deliberately, deepening the kiss like she was trying to prove a point. I froze, watching it unfold under the lights that painted their silhouettes in gold. Her sister, Vanessa, turned and saw me, eyes wide with disbelief. "Ethan? What the hell are you doing here?" she gasped. But the crowd had already begun to hush. One by one, heads turned. The champagne stopped flowing. The music faded. I stepped forward, my shoes echoing against the marble floor. The boy Andrew shrank slightly under my gaze, but Rachel just smiled like the queen of chaos. "Ethan," she said, tilting her head, "don't worry. We haven't signed the marriage license yet. You're still the official groom, if that's what you're so concerned about." Her voice was sugar-laced venom, smug and theatrical. I looked at her for a long time, searching her face for the woman I once knew, but all I found was performance. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the velvet box, the engagement ring her family had gifted me years ago. I held it up between 2 fingers and dropped it into her palm. "Rachel Liu," I said, my voice steady, "from this moment on, our engagement is null. We are done. You and I are nothing to each other." Her smirk faltered, just slightly. "Say that again," she hissed, but I was already turning to leave. Vanessa chased after me, high heels clicking behind me. "Ethan, wait please, don't take this seriously." Rachel was just trying to make a scene. "This wasn't even a real wedding, you're the one she's finished," I said coldly, without stopping. "And so is this farce." I left the ballroom behind, the stench of roses and champagne clinging to my skin. Outside, rain had begun to fall in earnest, tapping on the hood of my car like the sky itself wanted to mock me. That night, I called Caleb, my closest friend since college, and met him at our usual bar downtown. He walked in, took one look at the 2 empty wine bottles in front of me, and muttered, "Let me guess. Another fight with Rachel?" "She got married today," I replied flatly. Caleb blinked. "To who? A K-pop trainee?" "Close. Some college kid named Andrew Fu." Caleb reached for a bottle and raised it like he was going to shatter it against the wall. "Jesus Christ, Ethan. You should have dumped her years ago. I told you, didn't I? That girl was poison." He pulled out his phone. "Look, I made a group for you. All the top women in our circle. Just browse. Rebound hard. I'll even throw in introductions." "Bathroom," I muttered, pushing off the bar stool. I stepped into the hallway, still buzzing from the wine. That's when I saw him. Julian West. Leaning against the wall in a tailored black suit, cigarette dangling between 2 pale fingers, an aura of detached elegance clinging to him like smoke. He didn't belong in a place like T. She was too sharp, too clean, like a blade displayed in a dive bar. His eyes met mine. "Ethan Blake," he said, arching a brow. "Didn't you quit smoking when you got with Rachel?" "People change," I murmured. "Besides, it's not like she cares anymore." "Right," he said slowly. "I heard about the wedding. With a college kid, no less. You okay?" I didn't answer. He handed me a cigarette and lit it for me. "Come home with me tonight," I said, more sober than I'd ever been. Julian didn't blink. "Are you sure? Are you?" Our eyes locked. It wasn't just a line. It was a dare. A declaration. Julian pinched out his cigarette. Lead the way. The moment the door closed behind us, I pinned him against it, kissing him hard enough to steal his breath. His fingers fisted in my shirt. Ethan, he muttered between gasps. Try not to talk so much when you're redoing this. Then stop saying things worth answering, I snapped. The night blurred. Skin against skin, mouths bruised, the bitterness of betrayal melting into sweat and heat. By dawn, my voice was hoarse, and Julian was tangled in my sheets like he belonged there. My phone rang. Julian grabbed it from the floor and handed it to me, lips twitching. It's Rachel. I stared at the screen, then pressed answer. Her voice came, light and casual. Didn't you say yesterday that we're over? Then why did you go to my dad this morning and tell him Andrew's a bad fit? I didn't, I said. Are you insane? Wait, why does your voice sound weird? Are you sick? Guess, I said. Silence. Then she snapped, where are you? Who are you with? I grinned. Rachel, we've broken up. Who I'm with is none of your business. And I hung up. Julian laughed, then leaned over to whisper, about time you said that. I didn't reply. Not verbally. I pulled him into my arms again. Later that morning, while I was brewing coffee, he asked, you ever think about getting revenge? What kind of revenge? Marry me. Legit. That'll mess her up. I stared at him. You serious? I'm dead serious. You want the East District Development Project, right? My family's firm can secure it. If we're married, it's easier for us to team up on the bid. Besides, he said with a slow, sly smile, I owe you for last night. I raised an eyebrow. You're suggesting we get married to destroy your rival and piss off my ex. Exactly. I looked at him for a moment, then laughed. Fine. Happy partnership. 40 minutes later, we walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau holding a bright red marriage certificate. I was still stunned. Julian tucked it into his jacket. So. Honeymoon. What? What else do people do after getting married? By afternoon, we were underwater, diving into cerulean depths, surrounded by coral reefs and fish that shimmered like precious stones. Julian pointed at a cave glittering with bioluminescence. When we surfaced, a staff member handed me my phone. I had dozens of missed calls and unread messages. Suit fittings, floral arrangements, wedding ring consultations, all from Rachel's contacts. I scrolled through in disbelief. She leaked my number, I muttered. The phone buzzed again. Rachel. I picked up. Where the hell are you? She barked. The office said you took a month off. Why do you care? I replied. We're done, remember? So I messed up once. So what? I'll marry you too. I already started planning suit choices, venues. What more do you want? I laughed, joyless and bitter. You're insane. Ethan, I'm giving you a chance. If you say no now, you'll regret it for the rest of your life. Goodbye, Rachel. I blocked her number and tossed the phone on the bed. Julian walked out of the bathroom in nothing but a towel. Everything okay? She thinks a wedding can fix everything. Maybe she's right, Julian said, grinning. Just not hers. I laughed despite myself and pulled him into another kiss. This time, it was not revenge. It was the beginning of something unexpected, something real. Julian was lounging on the couch with his feet on the coffee table, flipping lazily through a travel magazine while sipping espresso. The morning light slanted across the hardwood floor, catching in his tousled hair and making him look impossibly smug. So, he said, without looking up, how long do you think it'll take before Rachel figures out we're not bluffing? I didn't answer right away. I was staring at our marriage certificate, still not entirely convinced I'd gone through with it. The red ink, the official seal, our names side by side, Ethan Blake and Julian West. 2 men, legally bound. I'd expected satisfaction. Vindication. Maybe a petty thrill. But what I felt was peace. The kind that settles in your chest when you realize you no longer owe anyone an explanation. I finally looked up and muttered, "Probably already did." He chuckled. "Should we send her a fruit basket? How about an invitation to the wedding?" He grinned wider, obviously enjoying this far too much. My phone buzzed again. I glanced at its unlisted number. I let it ring. Julian's gaze flicked to the screen. Still her. Probably. He put the mug down and came to stand beside me. "You know, this isn't just about revenge anymore. At least, not for me." I turned my head. "What is it, then?" He shrugged, but there was a flicker of something vulnerable in his expression. "Maybe I just like watching you heal." I didn't know what to say to that. A part of me wanted to believe him. Another part reminded me that Julian had always been strategic, deliberate, dangerous in a way most people never noticed until it was too late. But then again, wasn't that what made him interesting? That night, we flew to Iceland on a whim. Julian insisted. Clear skies, no paparazzi, and auroras that'll make you forget that woman ever existed. We rented a remote cabin surrounded by snowfields and silence. No Wi-Fi, no reception. Just the 2 of us, a wood-burning stove, and the slow crackle of ice melting off the roof. I found him standing by the window one evening, shirtless, arms crossed, watching the sky swirl green and blue. "You ever wonder," he said softly, "what kind of person you'd be if she hadn't broken you?" I stood behind him, close enough to feel the heat from his skin. "You think she broke me?" "No," he murmured. "I think you let her." His words stung more than I expected. But he wasn't wrong. I'd stayed too long. Forgiven too easily. Believed in someone who had no idea what loyalty meant. Julian turned to face me, eyes gleaming in the dim light. "Don't look at me like that. I'm not trying to hurt you. I just don't like seeing you live like your past owns you." "And what?" I said. "You're going to save me?" "No," he said, stepping closer. "I'm going to walk beside you until you save yourself." The silence between us crackled. And then he kissed me, softer this time. No urgency, no fury. Just 2 men standing in the cold with fire between them. We made love under thick blankets, the wind howling outside, his hands gentle, patient. In the morning, I woke to find him sketching on a napkin with a black pen. He'd drawn our wedding outfits. His had sharp angles and dramatic folds. Mine was simple, elegant, traditional. "You design suits now?" I asked. "Only for people I'm emotionally invested in." "That's a pretty short list." He looked up. "You're the only one on it." My breath caught. Before I could reply, the cabin landline rang. I answered. Static, then a voice: "Caleb. Dude, where the hell are you? You're trending." "What?" "Rachel leaked your number. Now half of Beijing thinks you're still her fiancé and the wedding was fake. She's calling designers, florists, planners, says she's throwing you a wedding whether you like it or not." I blinked. "She's what?" "She's insane, man. It's like she thinks if she throws enough money at it, you'll crawl back." "Thanks, Caleb. I'll deal with it." I hung up and turned to Julian. "She's gone nuclear." He sighed dramatically. "I'll book us a flight back." When we returned, Rachel had gone full PR warlord. Billboards in Times Square with my name on them. Messages from luxury boutiques asking when I'd like to come in for fittings. Wedding planners pitching me castle venues, rooftop ceremonies, cathedral bookings. Julian watched all of it unfold with fascination. "You've got to admire her dedication," he said. "She's either in love with you or completely unhinged. It's not love. It's control. You know she's going to crash our real wedding, right? Not if she doesn't know when it is. You think you can keep a secret from someone like her? I think I can try." That afternoon, Julian and I walked hand in hand through a gallery, pretending we were just another married couple looking for art. But I couldn't shake the feeling that Rachel was always one step behind, watching, waiting. That night, back at our apartment, Julian emerged from the shower in a robe, damp hair clinging to his neck. "So," he said, "how does it feel to be married to someone who isn't trying to manipulate you?" "Unfamiliar," I admitted. He smirked. "You'll get used to it." Just then, there was a knock at the door. I already knew who it was. I walked downstairs, marriage certificate in hand. Rachel stood on the porch, soaked in rain, makeup smeared. "Ethan," she whispered, "I was wrong. Let's fix this. I don't care about the past. Let's just get married." I stepped aside and let her see Julian behind me, shirtless, holding 2 glasses of wine. "We already did." Her face contorted. "You're kidding. This is a joke. You married him. Legally. Emotionally. Physically." Julian walked forward and slid his arm around my waist. "Hi, Rachel," he said, voice dripping with venomous politeness. "I believe I'm your replacement." She trembled. "I thought you were my best friend." "You thought wrong," he said with a smile. "You pushed Ethan away, and I picked up the pieces. 5 years you had him. You wasted every second." "This isn't over," she hissed. "You think I'll just walk away?" "I think," I said quietly, "you'll learn how it feels to be ignored." I closed the door in her face. Julian turned to me. "I want a real wedding. With flowers. Champagne. And doves, if we can afford them." I kissed his forehead. "You'll get it." Upstairs, the rain tapped softly on the windows. Downstairs, Rachel stood in the street like a ghost refusing to fade. But inside, I felt light. Unburdened. Free. I wasn't the man who waited anymore. I was the man who left and meant it. 3 weeks passed in a blur of appointments, strategy meetings, and moments that felt almost surreal. Julian and I tasting cakes that neither of us really cared about, arguing over floral arrangements we'd both forget, and laughing at the absurdity of planning a real wedding while still dodging digital landmines left behind by Rachel's scorched earth PR campaign. But beneath the banter and flirtation, I could feel something shifting in me. I'd stopped checking my phone every 5 minutes. I didn't wake up expecting confrontation. For the first time in years, I breathed without wondering if my ex had posted something to ruin my day. And then the gossip started. At first, it was just murmurs, whispers from mutual acquaintances who'd spotted Rachel dining with Andrew Fu again, despite claiming they had broken things off. A blurry photo surfaced of her holding his hand across a candlelit table. Julian showed it to me while scrolling Twitter in bed, smirking. "So much for that meaningless kiss, huh?" I didn't reply. The truth was, I didn't care about Rachel's lies anymore. What bothered me was that she was still trying to use my name like a shield. She hadn't let go, was just rewriting the narrative. Worse, the media began running with it. Headlines danced across the top of entertainment pages: Rachel Liu's fiancé returns, or did he? And Julian West, the rebound or the rival? I was tired of being the center of a drama I didn't write. I made one call. My assistant, Mia, answered on the second ring. "Mr. Blake. Find me everything you can on Andrew Fu." Every dirty detail, every skeleton he's been hiding. I want receipts, videos, testimonies, I don't care what it takes. And get in touch with our media partners, blacklist him from every platform we fund. Understood. If Rachel tries to interfere, tell them to ignore her. Prioritize my instructions. No negotiation. Yes, sir. An hour later, Andrew's carefully curated image began to fall apart. Anonymous posts flooded the comment sections of his fan pages, stories of him bullying classmates in high school, of plagiarizing scripts, of using family connections to land fake internships. One particularly brutal exposé included an old video of him mocking a disabled crew member on set. The public turned fast. Hashtags like Andrew Fu cancelled and Lulais 2 started trending. Julian watched the whole storm unfold on his tablet with quiet satisfaction. That was fast, he said. You don't play around. I'm done playing fair. He set the tablet down and looked at me. Was that for you? Or for me? Does it matter? It does to me. I met his eyes. Then maybe it was for both of us. Meanwhile, Rachel went radio silent until the night we received an unexpected visitor. Caleb was over, drunk off 2 glasses of wine as usual, ranting about the fact that Rachel had apparently booked all the LED billboards downtown to replay birthday videos for Andrew on a loop. Every damn screen, Ethan. It's like she's trying to make you combust. She had celebrity cameos. She had drones flying around spelling his name. Has she completely lost it? I downed my scotch. She's spiraling. Dude, Caleb said, sobering slightly, do you even know how lucky you are to be rid of her? Julian walked in from the kitchen with a bowl of popcorn. He knows. But thanks for the reminder. Caleb blinked at him, then broke into laughter. God, I love this guy. I offered him a weak smile and stood to leave the room. I'll get you some water. You need sobering tea. But as I crossed the hallway, a voice called out behind me. Ethan. I turned and there she was. Vanessa Liu. She looked almost exactly like Rachel, except her expressions carried hesitation instead of arrogance. Vanessa, I said flatly. What are you doing here? Rachel's in box 6. She thought you might show up. I didn't. I won't. Ethan, we're not related anymore. Stop calling me your brother-in-law. I brushed past her, but as luck would have it, the hallway looped directly past the VIP lounge. I could hear Rachel's voice through the heavy door, low and sultry. I didn't want to look, but curiosity betrayed me. Through a crack, I saw her leaning against a couch, draped in a red silk gown, swirling a glass of wine in her fingers while Andrew sat beside her like a loyal pet. Vanessa entered, whispering, I saw Ethan. He's here. Rachel didn't even flinch. So, she said, lips curling. He'll come crawling back, like always. It's been a month. It's only been a month, Rachel corrected. He's just being dramatic. Let him sulk. You don't think he's serious this time? He never is. She tilted her head toward Andrew. Besides, this one's been very obedient. Haven't you, sweetheart? Andrew nodded, glassy-eyed. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Of course I am. I pushed the door open, letting the conversation screech to a halt. Rachel straightened up, blinking. Ethan. I took off my coat, revealing the love bites Julian had left scattered across my neck. Her gaze zeroed in on them like they were wounds. What's that? She snapped. I smiled without warmth. Proof that I've moved on. Her wine glass slipped from her fingers and shattered on the floor. Who did it? None of your business. You're sleeping around behind my back. Behind whose back, Rachel? You've been on a month-long honeymoon with a boy toy. You're disgusting. No, Rachel. A qualified ex is supposed to stay buried. You keep rising like a bad sequel. I turned to leave. She screamed something behind me, but I was already halfway out the door. Back in the other room, Caleb raised an eyebrow. Was that what I think it was? Closure. I grabbed my coat. Come on. Let's go home before this place burns down. The fallout came quickly. A few days later, Rachel's name vanished from multiple endorsement deals. Andrew's projects were postponed indefinitely. But the final blow came when a live stream surfaced Rachel, barefoot and sobbing, kneeling on a mountain trail, repeating my name like a prayer. If I ever hurt you, I'll walk to Willow Peak, she had said back when we were teenagers. And now she was doing it. In public. On camera. Thousands watched, some with pity, most with disgust. I watched the footage for a full minute, then calmly gave it a thumbs up. Julian walked in, toweling his hair dry. What are you watching? Rachel's Oscar reel. Did she finally break? No. She finally got what she wanted. Attention. Julian studied the screen, then shook his head. You know, I used to envy her. I glanced at him. Why? Because she had your heart. But watching this. He stepped closer. Now I just feel sorry for her. Don't. I looked away. She never knew how to take care of it. She only knew how to crush it. That night, Julian posted our engagement photo online. Nothing flashy. Just the two of us in a quiet cafe, his head on my shoulder, my fingers interlaced with his. The caption said, "Some things are worth the wait." The reaction was immediate. Congratulatory messages. Shocked comments. Memes. And, of course, a few threads filled with Rachel's die-hard fans calling it fake, a PR stunt, a rebound. But for once, I didn't care. I closed the app, put the phone down, and pulled Julian into my lap. You sure you're ready for the chaos this brings? I asked. I live for chaos, he whispered, pressing his lips to mine. And for the first time in what felt like a century, I kissed someone without tasting regret. The sky was steel gray the morning I got the call from Vanessa. I was sitting in a meeting with my father, finalizing permits for the East District Development Project, when her name popped up on my screen. I almost let it ring out of instinct, but something in my chest told me to answer. Ethan, she said, her voice thin and tight with urgency, Rachel's in the hospital. She crashed into a guardrail on her way home last night. They say she wasn't drunk, just distracted. The car's totaled, but she's okay physically. Mentally? I don't know. I blinked, gripping the edge of the table. Why are you telling me this? Because she won't eat. Won't drink. She won't speak to anyone. The only person she's asking for is you. I exhaled slowly, eyes darting to the architectural blueprints sprawled across the table. And how many numbers has she tried? Yours was the only one she gave. That said more than I wanted it to. I hung up and blocked Vanessa's number without a word. My father looked up from his notes, sensing the shift in my mood. Problem? No. Just a leftover ghost knocking. But ghosts rarely stayed quiet. That afternoon, while grabbing files from my apartment, I found Rachel sitting on the edge of the flower bed outside my building. Her hospital gown was too thin for the wind. Her hair hung wet and tangled, and her eyes, those once bright, manipulative eyes, looked dull, almost vacant. Ethan, she said softly, as if saying my name might undo the wreckage she caused. I didn't stop walking. She rose to her feet, stepping in front of me. Please. I just want a glass of water. I'm cold. I'm married. I didn't yell. Didn't sneer. Just reminded her of the boundary. She hesitated, her fingers twitching. Julian tricked you. He's been in love with you since college. You remember that love letter in your locker? The one you thought someone planted to mess with you? That was him. I narrowed my gaze. That's what you came here for? To drag up high school rumors. He knew you were engaged to me. He did everything to come between us. You don't see it now, but, Rachel, I interrupted, are you actually suggesting that Julian forced you to marry Andrew Fu? That he somehow convinced you to lie, cheat, and orchestrate that circus of a wedding? Her jaw clenched, but she didn't answer. You're sick, I added. And not because of a car crash. You've been sick for years, you just never noticed because everyone let you believe it was charm. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling your father. He can take you back to the hospital. Wait, she said, voice cracking. Don't go. I don't have anyone else. That's not my fault. When her father arrived, I handed her off like a formality. He gave me a look full of quiet shame and murmured, she wasn't always like this. Neither was I replied. Look what she did to me. As I turned to leave, I heard Rachel cry out behind me, but I didn't look back. I had a life now and she wasn't part of it. The next few days passed quietly. Julian returned from a site visit, suitcase in one hand, a smug grin on his lips. Guess who finally got the city to greenlight our exterior lighting design? Let me guess, I said, you charmed the board with that voice of yours. And wore a very tight shirt. You're welcome. I chuckled, leaning back against the counter. But the ease between us didn't last long. That night, after dinner, I overheard a heated conversation on the balcony. Rachel's voice again. She must have followed Julian home. You think you're better than me, she snapped. Tell him the truth. Tell him you married him to win a real estate bid. Tell him the East District project was your ploy. I stepped outside, finding them nose to nose, tension snapping like wires. I already know, I said. Rachel spun to face me, triumphant. Then how could you still choose him? I walked over and laced my fingers with Julian's. Because you're not the only one who calculates, Rachel. And I'm not the same man you left at that altar. Her mouth dropped open. You're saying you used him? No, I said simply. I chose him. After everything you did, I had to learn how to choose someone who actually shows up. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small white box. By the way, I said, holding it out, you can stop pretending this ring still matters. Her eyes went wide when she saw it. It was the engagement ring her family had given me years ago. The same one she claimed she never meant to give anyone else. That's mine, then maybe explain how it ended up in Andrew Fu's Instagram story. Her face went pale. It was just the ass to see it. I wasn't thinking. I didn't give it to him. Took the picture without, goodbye, Rachel. I turned to Julian. We've got a wedding to plan. That night, while lying in bed, Julian asked softly, you really don't blame me? I rolled over to face him. You're not a saint. But neither am I. You're just the one who didn't leave. His eyes softened. That's a low bar. Then raise it with me. The following week was filled with fittings, venue visits, cake sampling, and late-night phone calls with our planner. But one afternoon, while scrolling through notifications, something strange caught my eye. A live stream alert, Rachel Liu is live now. I tapped it, expecting another tantrum. What I saw froze me. She was kneeling on a mountain path Willow Peak wearing a thin hoodie, her hair plastered to her face from sweat and rain. Her knees were bloodied. Her voice, ragged. I'm sorry, Ethan, she kept repeating. If I ever hurt you, I'll kneel every step up this mountain. I meant what I said when we were 17. Comments flooded the screen. Too late. Where was this energy when you were cheating? The apology of a narcissist is a performance. I watched for exactly 1 minute, then closed the app. Julian looked up from his laptop. What was that? An ending, I said. Finally. But the storm wasn't quite over. That night, Julian received a call from Rachel's father. She fainted near the summit. They had to airlift her out. She won't talk to anyone but you, Ethan. I handed the phone to my dad, who was sitting nearby. Handle it, I said. She's your friend, too. My father sighed and took the phone. Old Lou, my son's getting married. He doesn't need to entertain ghosts. I'll send Julian. They know each other. That should be enough. Julian's face twitched, but he nodded. Sure. I'll go. I waited outside the hospital room while he stepped inside. Through the glass, I saw Rachel sit up, her eyes going wide at the sight of him. Her mouth moved rapidly. Julian just stood there, listening. No anger. No pity. Just calm. When he stepped back out, he said nothing. I didn't ask. We went home. 2 nights later, I got another surprise. Andrew Fu showed up at my office, looking 10 years older than he had in the tabloids. Can I talk to you? He asked. About Rachel. Why me? She's pregnant. I sat back, emotionless. And you're telling me because she doesn't want the baby. I do. But she won't listen. You're the only one she might. I cut him off with a dry laugh. You think I'm going to help you convince my ex to raise your kid? She said I was the exception. That she wanted a future with me. You know how many people she said that to? I pulled out my phone and opened a photo folder labeled red string bracelets. She gave that same promise to at least 4 other guys. You're not special. You're convenient. His shoulders sagged. I just thought. Don't. I waved for my assistant. Escort him out. And make sure security adds him to the blacklist. Alone again, I turned to the window, watching the city pulse below. My wedding was a week away. The weather forecast promised sun. The guest list was full. And somewhere out there, Rachel was finally silent. It didn't feel like triumph. It felt like closure. And that was enough. The sun rose early on the morning of our wedding, painting the skyline gold as if the city itself had decided to bless us with warmth. I stood in front of the mirror in our penthouse, buttoning the collar of my dark custom suit. Julian's reflection appeared behind me, his fingers adjusting my tie with practiced ease. You look nervous, he said, though there was a faint tremble in his hands too. Not nervous, I murmured. Just. Still surprised it's real. He gave me a soft smile, eyes crinkling at the corners. It's always been real. You just didn't think you deserved it. I turned to face him, watching the sunlight reflect off his hair like liquid bronze. I used to think love was a transaction sacrifice for security, appearances for power. With her, I was always negotiating my worth. And now, he asked. Now, I said, resting my forehead against his, I finally feel seen. The ceremony was held in an open-air courtyard in the center of the Blake estate, surrounded by ancient trees wrapped in crimson silk. The design was Julian's idea, blend of Chinese elegance and Western symmetry. Rows of red lanterns floated above the aisle, while floral arches carved in dark wood lined the perimeter. It felt like something out of a dream. Caleb acted as best man, of course. He gave a speech that was equal parts roast and heartwarming tribute, concluding with, I've known Ethan since college. Back then, he was stubborn, cynical, and emotionally constipated. Julian, congrats on getting him to talk about his feelings without flinching. You deserve a medal or at least hazard pay. Laughter rolled through the guests. Julian winked at me. I smiled. In the audience, I caught sight of Vanessa Lou sitting quietly near the back. She nodded when our eyes met, but said nothing. There was no sign of Rachel. I should have felt relief. I didn't. The wedding vows were written privately, recited publicly, and yet they felt like they existed in a space only Julian and I could enter. I never expected you, I said to him, voice low but sure. You weren't part of my plan. But you made me feel like I had a choice. And for the first time, I chose myself be choosing you. Julian looked at me with something fierce and fragile in his eyes. I don't promise perfection. But I promise presence. No more hiding, no more chasing shadows. Just you, me, and whatever future we build together. As our lips touched, the sky burst into applause. Petals rained from above, music swelled, and the people who knew us best stood to celebrate a chapter they never saw coming. After the reception, while Julian slipped away to change into his toast outfit, I stood alone by the koi pond at the edge of the courtyard, watching the ripples bend the reflection of the lanterns. A soft voice broke the silence. That was beautiful, Vanessa said, approaching cautiously. She held something small in her hands, a string of wooden Buddhist beads. Rachel wanted me to give you these. She got them from Willow Peak after the incident. She said if there's still a shred of guilt in her, she wanted you to have it. I didn't take them. Guilt doesn't need a bracelet. I know, Vanessa whispered. She just wanted you to remember she tried. She tried too late. I think she knows that now. Vanessa turned to go, but then paused. She won't be coming back. Not to you, not to the spotlight. She's moving to another city. Starting over. I thought you should know. I nodded. It wasn't forgiveness. It wasn't revenge. But it was something. Julian returned in a crimson suit, embroidered in gold thread, and swept me into the center of the dance floor. He spun with the grace of someone who'd done this before, but his smile, his real, crooked, genuine smile, was all mine. We danced past guests offering congratulations, past waiters balancing towers of champagne, past old friends and new allies, until it was just the two of us again, as it had always been in the moments that mattered. Later that night, back in our suite, Julian sat on the bed, kicking off his shoes, exhaustion creeping across his features. You think we did it? He asked. I think we survived it. He leaned back on his elbows, hair messy, collar loosened. Was it everything you hoped? Better, I said. It wasn't just an ending, it was a beginning I never thought I'd earn. He scooted back, patting the space beside him. Then come here, husband. I joined him, wrapping an arm around his waist. The room still smelled like roses and candle wax. Through the window, the city blinked like a field of stars. I keep thinking, he murmured, tracing patterns on my chest, about how many chances we almost missed. If you'd stayed with her. If I'd stayed silent. If I hadn't followed you that night to the bar. You did more than follow, I said with a smile. You stepped in when I had no one left. I didn't do it for pity. I know, I whispered. You did it because you saw me, even when I didn't see myself. The next morning, we boarded a flight to the Maldives, switching off our phones, shutting the world out. Julian packed exactly 1 book, 2 suits, and 32 skincare items. I'm glowing in every honeymoon photo, he declared. No exceptions. I didn't argue. As the plane soared above the clouds, he rested his head on my shoulder and exhaled. We made it, Ethan. All the way through the fire. I looked out at the endless blue sky and thought about the boy I'd been, the man I'd become, and the love I never saw coming. Yeah, I whispered. We made it. And we're not going back. The waves murmured like a lullaby, washing against the white sand as I lay on a hammock suspended between two palm trees, Julian asleep beside me, one arm draped across my chest. The Maldives sun was warm but forgiving, filtering through the fronds above us in dancing patterns of gold and green. The only sounds were the rustling leaves, the occasional call of a seabird, and Julian's soft, rhythmic breathing. I never thought peace could feel so loud, so full. No background noise of guilt, no shadows of doubt. Just the weight of his hand, the stillness of our hearts finally resting in sync. The honeymoon stretched out like an untouched canvas. We swam with manta rays in the open reef, watched bioluminescent plankton turn the ocean into a bed of stars, and made love in moonlight so bright it felt like the sky was blessing our every breath. Julian talked about building a second home here someplace small, minimalist, hidden from the world. Not to escape, he clarified, toes brushing the surf, but to remind ourselves we deserve softness. And for once, I didn't argue. One morning, while sipping Bitter Island espresso and scrolling idly through messages on our hotel balcony, I saw a familiar name appear on the news feed: Rachel Liu. I almost put the phone down, but the headline caught my attention: Liu Group's Heiress steps down, hands control to sister. I clicked. The article was brief, formal, void of gossip. It simply stated that Rachel had left her position as CEO and relocated overseas. Vanessa Liu had taken over. There were no explanations, no scandals. Just a quiet departure. I stared at the screen for a long time, the salt breeze tugging at my shirt. Julian walked up behind me, wrapping his arms around my waist. Something wrong? I showed him the article. He didn't flinch. She's finally letting go. Or finally realizing she had nothing left to hold on to. He rested his chin on my shoulder. Do you still feel anything? I thought about it. Regret, maybe. Not for the relationship, just for the years I lost convincing myself it meant something. No, I said honestly. Not anymore. When we returned to the city, everything had changed, but nothing had. The skyline still blinked with ambition. My office still smelled like pine and ink. But people looked at me differently, like I'd done something impossible. In a way, maybe I had. I walked through the halls of Blake Enterprises with new clarity. No longer Rachel's shadow. No longer the backup groom. No longer the man waiting for an apology that would never come. A week after our return, I received a call from Vanessa. Her voice was calm but brittle. She asked me to call you. Just once. Why? She wants to send you something. Not to win you back, just as a closing gesture. I sighed. Fine. One item. I don't want flowers. I don't want letters. It's not that, Vanessa said softly. It's the red string bracelet. The one she used to wear every day. She said if she kept it, it would keep haunting her. When the box arrived, I didn't open it right away. It sat untouched on my desk for 2 days before curiosity nudged me. Inside was the bracelet, faded, slightly frayed at the edges, the knot still tied tight. No note. No theatrics. Just silence. Julian found me staring at it and leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. You gonna burn it? Maybe. You don't have to prove anything to me. I know, I said. I just don't know if I want to remember who I was when I gave this to her. He walked over, took the box from my hands, and closed the lid. Then let's remember who you are now. I nodded. We placed it in the fire that night, and I watched the thread curl into ash. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like freedom. The East District project broke ground a month later. The ceremony was public, polished, attended by investors and press. Julian and I stood side by side in matching suits, our hands brushing behind the podium, invisible to the cameras. Think they know? He whispered. That this isn't just business? I smiled. They will. The weeks that followed were full of meetings, late-night strategy sessions, and moments of unexpected tenderness. Julian falling asleep in the conference room with his head on my shoulder, or scribbling mock press releases titled, "CEO's husband catches paparazzi slacking, demands better angles." We laughed a lot. We argued more because he was stubborn and I was proud, but always ended up finding each other again, hands reaching in the dark. One night, after hosting a private gala, I found myself standing on the rooftop of our building, glass of whiskey in hand, watching the city blink below. Julian joined me, barefoot, wrapped in a black robe. "You thinking about the past?" he asked. "No," I said. "I'm thinking about the future." "You scared?" "Terrified." He grinned. "Good. Means it matters." I turned to him, pulling him closer. "You were right, you know." "About what?" "That love isn't something we stumble into. It's something we choose. Every single day." He looked up at me, his eyes softer than the night sky. "Then choose me again tomorrow. And the day after. And the day after that. Always." Our kiss was quiet. No fireworks. No background music. Just the sound of two lives intertwining at last. Somewhere in another city, Rachel was probably starting her version of this. Somewhere in the past, we'd both been broken in different ways. But here on this rooftop, in this life I was whole. I was married. I was free. And for the first time, I believed I could stay that way.